Hello everyone, welcome back to Algorithm Empowerment. Today we're going to be talking about a book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And this book was really important to me personally because I read it during a period where I was kind of at a low point in my life. I just suffered 2 injuries from hockey and I had to go through a few surgical procedures, and I also didn't have any educational background that I had completed. I was a high school dropout, and I was kind of searching for something to send me on a trajectory where I could kind of put everything back together. And this book really helped me to do that. So a little personal history on Eckhart Tolle. He was originally born in Germany. When he was 13, he moved to Spain with his father because his parents got divorced and he decided he wanted to stay with his dad. And when he was in Germany, he decided that he wasn't going to go to school and he was just going to focus on things that were interesting to him, like literature, astronomy, and a variety of other things. In his early 20s, he decided that he was going to go back to school after he developed some anxiety and depression, and he thought that school was the place where he would find the answers to a lot of the questions that he had. And when he was 29, he went through this transformation that he calls a spiritual awakening. We may call it a realization, or we can call it really whatever we want. But there was a shift that took place. And the main point that I want to talk about from his book, because there's a lot of different points in his book that are really crucial, but it would be hard for me to encapsulate all the points because they're slightly abstract. And I really want to just get one point across to you guys so maybe you could explore the book in its entirety. So we're going to focus on his section of the ego because I think a lot of people have trouble with the ego. I know that I personally do, and I just wanted to explain his viewpoints on it and kind of how he thinks about it. So with the ego, Eckhart says that the stem of the ego initially starts when we're young and we get allotted a name. And once we know what our name is, we then start to know what items' names are, and we begin to attach those items with our name. For instance, when you're a little kid, that's my toy, or, that's my couch. And these things, there starts to be no separation between the self and the thing that's yours. And as we get older, we accumulate more and more things, and it webs out into identification with people, social status, professional status, etc. And the more ego that we have, the more separate we become from other people. The interesting thing about the ego is that there's not only a positive aspect of the ego, which means identifying with more and separating yourself through kind of thinking that you're at an elevated position in regards or in comparison to another person, but there's also the negative aspect of the ego. So it's a very cunning thing, and it may be overlooked, but Eckhart says that even people who identify with negative aspects of their life, maybe things that happened to them that they didn't think should have happened to them, or personality traits that they don't think are good about them. Maybe I'm shy or I'm anxious. That can be an expression of ego as well because we're identifying with certain things or forms. And he says that that's the core of the ego, and how we break through the ego is we see through the things into what who we truly are. And a great exercise for this would be for you to ask yourself right now, who am I right now? And the most valid answer that you could come up with if you were to truly ask yourself, who am I right now, is you're just the attention that's watching this video. Nothing more, nothing less. And if we were to ask me who I am, I'm just the attention that's creating this video. And the interesting thing about that is it doesn't have it's not superior or it's not inferior to anything. It's just kind of blank. The equivalence of attention in the room that you're in right now, if you look at the room, is the space of the room. And we might overlook space and look at it and say, well, that's not really profound, it's just space. But everything other than space in the room that you're in is subject to decay, erosion, will ultimately become nothing at some point as well. So it's pretty profound to realize that the space of the actual room is the foundation of how everything can manifest. The things of the room are dependent on the space in order to be, but the space of the room itself is not dependent on the things to be in the room. And the inner equivalent to this is our attention, like I was saying before. And if we can meet each other just as that attention, none of the other BS that we claim to be or we think we are, if we can meet as just that empty space of attention, we don't become two people that are talking to each other. If we're both just attention, me and you aren't separate. And this is kind of what made me understand the old saying, love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you take that statement at face value, love your neighbor as yourself, you look at some people, how am I going to do that? I can't stand that person, And the reality of it is you can't love your neighbor as yourself unless you know your neighbor as yourself. And Eckhart has a lot of tools in the book to help you realize that in essence, we're all just presence. And when we get deep down to who we are actually, it's just conscious attention. And so the next part of the book, which is one of my personal favorites, is when Eckhart talks about abundance. So the traditional concept of abundance, there's this erroneous assumption that the more things we accumulate, the more people that are our friends, the more social status we accumulate, professional status, these things at some point in the future will bring us abundance. But in reality, if you've ever accumulated any of these things and you were dependent on accumulating them in order to be happy, you've realized that the happiness is kind of short-lived. It's like you do something that's valuable and it feels good for a while, but after a while it fades away. And so if we look at this closely, what we're really after aren't these things, but the actual feeling of abundance. We want to feel good. And we've been sold on the fact that these things will bring us abundance. The honest truth is we can feel abundant right now just by knowing who we are. So if we know ourselves as space or attention, whatever term you like more, and space and attention, they're already complete. There's nothing that you could add to attention or to space to make it more than it already is. And this is a game changer because if you know, okay, all I am is attention or space, I'm already complete. You realize, I'm already enough. So if we can operate from this recognition of already being complete, we're open to connection with other people, we're more effective in developing new skills and things. The thing of it is, we're no longer dependent or caught in the delusion that external things will bring us ultimate fulfillment. So with the attention that we talked of earlier, we realized that on our journey to find abundance in the future, we were blocking the only place where we could ever find abundance, which is the actual source of abundance. And that is the here and the now, the present moment. And once we realize this, we fully enter into it. So thanks for watching, and I encourage you to explore the entire book. And always remember, whoever you are, wherever you are, and whatever you do, keep giving her.